This video will look at how to stop checklists from adding work notes every time you do something in a checklist. So I'm logged into my demo instance, my PDI rather, and I have this requested item, and I put the checklist formatter in here so that I could add checklists to request items. So I'm going to go ahead in the checklist, I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to say do this, then do that. So each time I did that, if I go back to the activity formatter, I can see that there was a work note created for every action that I did. Checklist created, checklist item added, do this, do that, etc. So I guess, well, in and of itself, I mean, it's not terrible, but it does crowd up the work notes with this, with your checklist activity. And unfortunately, they didn't, ServiceNow did not create a separate journal entry for checklist. Instead, they just threw it in the work notes, so there's no way to filter that out. So if you have actual pertinent work notes in here with your colleagues telling you, giving you pertinent information here, that can get drowned out by this barrage of checklist activity going on here. So what we're going to look at is how to cut this out, how to stop it from adding work notes every time I do something. So to do that, there's actually a business rule. Let's just take a look quickly at the structure of checklists. There are two main tables for checklists. The checklist table, which contains the parent. Every time I do a create new checklist, it creates a record in here and links to the task record that the checklist is created in. And then the checklist, if I go in here, and actually I should configure this related list, let's see if we can find, right, has checklist items. So here are the checklist item records that get created under the individual checklist. So if we go to one of these records, or actually we don't even have to, I think we can just go here and we can do business rules on this table. There is a business rule called add work note for checklist item CRUD. So that's exactly what's happening. Every time I create, update, or delete, it is adding a work note. So we'll go into this business rule, and if you have some specific requirements, you can go in here and edit this. So say, for example, you want to turn it off on certain tables, but not other ones, you can go ahead and mess around in there. If you just want to shut it off altogether, just turn that business rule off. So now we'll go back to our requested items. And I guess, which one was I in here? Any one of them. Okay, so this is what I did before. And let's start checking these, and nothing gets added. Let's say I remove the whole darn thing, and I create another one. Okay. So my adding of items was turned off, but what I didn't turn off is the checklist one. So let's go back to the checklist table. And let's go to the business rules on the checklist table, and here we have the same kind of deal. So this is creating a work note every time I create or delete a checklist, so we'll just shut that sucker off too. And now we should be completely clean. We'll go back to a requested item, and let's remove this checklist. Let's add another checklist. And we go here, and it didn't add any records. So just one more thing on this topic. So let's say you do that, and now people are creating checklists, and then you get into a witch hunt situation where, who modified my checklist? You get that kind of question. So you can't go to the work notes anymore because we shut those things off. So if you have a kind of audit that you need to go on a whodunit mission, you can always go to that checklist table. Again, that's just checklist.list. and go find the whatever record it's on. Actually, let's do it by updated. We'll find the most recent one, the one I've been messing around in. Yeah, this one. Okay, so you do have some information about who completed it and when it was completed. So you have your update date time and completed by. You also have who created it, right? All the usual stuff that you have on records. If it was deleted, you're not going to have that information, right? So if you're deleting items out of a checklist or you're deleting the checklist altogether, you're not going to have that information. But you can get who created it and who completed it and what time they did it. So there is some audit information available. Um, maybe not as great as the work notes would give you if you had an entry in the work notes every time something happened. But to be honest with you, I don't see how that's useful having that in the work notes. It's just it crowds up the work notes, and God forbid you have somebody on the watch list. They're going to get an email notification every time somebody checks off an item in that list. So I think shutting that stuff down is the best solution, and you can get some additional audit stuff in here if ever you need it. But the idea of checklist is really just like a supplemental informational piece for the fulfiller in the record, and it's not really meant as a sort of record of what happened. It's really just informational and to help the fulfiller. But if we want to know what happened and who was doing what, then we use regular fields for that, namely the state field and any other fields for that kind of stuff. So that is how to turn that annoying work notes off in checklists.